Well, then I'm going to call this meeting to order. City Clerk Dean, you got a roll?
Got it.
Thank you. First thing on our agenda is the approval of it. What do you think?
So moved.
Second.
Third. All right, moving on to public comments. Anybody got something to say? You're kind of officially. So was there anybody more public-y that needed to talk? All right, go ahead. You're good.
Evening, everybody. Patrick Fry, City of Snoqualmie, project engineer. Just wanted to let you know that the bid opening for the solid waste contract was today. I know you were all waiting with bated breath for the results. Waste management was the apparent low bidder, so there's still a lot of checking to do. But assume that forward, then they are the low bidder, so we'd be sticking with the incumbent hauler, and we did get lower pricing than what they had provided to us a couple of months ago for that 1-year extension contract. So all
That's
in all,
good.
All in all, good news.
Yeah.
How many bids were received? 3 bids. And we were expecting, there's like 3 haulers in the game, so 3 out of 3. Pretty good.
We weren't expecting 4. Why was I remembering that number?
There is a 4th hauler, but they are new and they haven't really.
Okay, so we weren't expecting that one. We were expecting the 3.
We were expecting 3.
Okay,
Yep, and we got 3. So all good news.
okay.
I'll be back in a couple of weeks or 4 weeks maybe, with full results and a whole presentation, but just
All right.
you know.
Thanks for all you do. All right. So far, we're doing all right. That was good. That was, yeah. All right, if that's the end, there's nobody else with public comment, we'll move on to approval of the minutes dated April 16th, 2024. They seem pretty spot on to me. Anybody see anything?
I didn't find anything. So move.
Okay. Then they are approved. Agenda Bill 24-058 Meadowbrook Bridge Restoration. Is that going to be you, Miss Ahmed?
So this agenda bill is to approve the use of OTAC Inc. Professional service to evaluate the structural integrity and the paint condition and scour repair for Meadowbrook Bridge. So little background, we had this project on the CIV 2023 and 2024 as load rating and painting. We did the load rating came low. So now based on the load rating result and the latest inspection report, simply painting the bridge might not be the good enough plan for that. So the bridge might require further assessment onto the structural integrity and to determine the necessary scope of the restoration and the CIP project. Also, the county have a revetment project near the bridge pier, and the revetment work might affect the bridge pier and that might affect the scour also in the pier. So with that, yes, it will affect the scour based on the work that they're gonna do. So it will affect the hydraulic activity there. So it will, one beer with increased scour or more sediment in the other beer, we will have to coordinate with the county throughout the revetment project to see the impact of that onto the bridge. So this.
Oh, please finish with what you're saying.
So this contract is to use the professional service of OTAC to coordinate with the county, see the effect of their project, also to assess the structural integrity of the bridge as of today, and to refine the new CIB scope of work.
When is the county doing their revetment program?
They're still on the planning phase, but it's the news that we have is from now up to 3 years.
Okay, so
This is the work that they're doing.
we're not going to assess until their revetment project is going, or
We're gonna coordinate with them through their planning phase. So while they're planning on their revetment project, we wanna make sure that it's aligned with our project And we want to have someone who is professional to represent the city through this phase.
And that's OTAC.
Yes.
Okay, and now when we heard about this project before, reading through the agenda, Bill, and comparing it to what I remembered from when we talked about before, it sounds like the anticipated workload is increasing, that the bridge was in slightly worse condition than we were hoping.
Yes.
And how is that affecting the funding, the long-term funding of this project? That's what I wasn't able to figure out, not because it wasn't in there, but I just wasn't able to figure it out.
So from the previous discussion on February, we had scenarios of the type of work we can do. And we're talking about increased cost of the construction, but we were not sure which scenario the council was wanted to go with. And there was ask for more analysis and assessment to help the council make a decision on the 3 options that we have, which was only working on the bridge truss. The other option was working on the truss and the scour repair. The third option was replacement. So we do have 3 options, of course. That's what we discussed in the previous the committee meeting of February. But to make a decision on which option is best to use the budget for is what we will have OTAC. So they're gonna do thorough assessment of the structural integrity. There was a discussion about the emergency vehicle that can go through the bridge, the fire trucks. So they're gonna do a thorough assessment of its condition right now, add the factors that we have for like our emergency vehicles and all the repairs that we'll need to make sure that we won't compromise any emergency access. This is part of the work that scope of work that OTAC is doing on this task order or the.
But we're not currently in danger of going over budget in the current biennium.
Not in the current biennium. Yeah.
Any other questions on that? You usually have a budget question.
Director Hamlin has a question.
Oh, where's he at? Is he hiding?
Right up there.
There's a little corner.
Oh, there he is.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Yes, just to make it clear, we know that the bridge is going to need some maintenance soon. We know that it needs, at a minimum, it's going to need painting, but we also know that it's going to need some scabbing, metal scab. We need to put some metal back on the bridge because of the corrosion. We also know that we have a declining or a decaying situation around the bridge piers. We need to do further analysis to make sure, or at least to ensure that we have the bridges continued good for service leading into the future. There's a few things that are moving targets at the same time. We have the revetment project that the county is doing. They are just starting their design phase. So we have to make sure that we coordinate with them through that period, and that's in the scope. We also know that the mill site project, phases 2 and 3 would support funding to replace the bridge in the future. We also have periodic inspections every 2 years on the bridge. And so as time goes on, we suspect that we are going to get closer and closer to structural deficiency on that bridge, and we will have to do something to replace the bridge or to do some maintenance. We're trying to stay ahead of that with this contract with OTAC.
So correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like the minimal choice is, it sounds like there's work that would need, that would be, like if we scabbed on metal after we did painting, that doesn't make any sense.
Wouldn't make any sense. That's correct.
Okay. All right. So do we really have 3 options, or do we really only have 2 options?
Well, I'd say we have multiple options. The first option would be to scab the metal and to paint it. That's the minimum. And to what level that is, we're not sure. There is the do nothing option, of course, which would be to let the thing continue to decline. and wait for it to fail inspection. And we don't know when that's going to be. That could be in 2 years, or it could be in 4 years, or maybe it'll make it till 6 years. And then there is the pier improvements, the bridge pier improvements, which will likely be necessary because we are already seeing scour undercutting the existing piers. So there's the possibility that, you know, that with the revetment improvements, that we can do some things with the county at the same time if we work with them to help protect that pier as well. And then the last option, of course, is to replace the bridge when we have more funding.
Options 1 and 4 seem extreme right now, but did you have something? You look like you have something.
Well, yeah, because the vast majority of funding here, it's really for that ongoing.
Can you pull your mic closer so that Jeff can hear you?
Half the funding here is really for the ongoing coordination with the county due to their revetment project. So I guess maybe, Drew, this is a finance question of, agreed that affects the bridge, but that wasn't the original scope of the Meadowbrook Bridge. So we're having additional impact. So does this project need to bear that total cost itself? Or is there some other mechanism under which we can allocate that? I am concerned that's, you know, again, that's half the cost we're talking here, is just that 3 years of coordination with the county in regards to their upcoming project for revetment and how it may impact the bridge. So we already have a project which may cost us a lot, and I'm concerned that we added that price tag to this on a King County project. And that's this impact from a King County project. So I guess my real question is, was that 3 years of coordination? I assume it would not have been required if the county was not doing that revetment project.
No, it would be required, even if they were doing it or not. The pier fixes will be required regardless of what the county's doing.
The prior phases, the assessment and the overall project management would. That's for 30,000 and 25,000. But the 116,000 is ongoing support, and really the majority of that is coordination with the county in regards to the revetment project, correct?
Yeah, probably not the best wording, but you know, it's going to be with regard to fixing those piers on both sides, right? It's not just one pier, it's both piers. And there will be some ongoing coordination while they're in the design phase to help us, not to help us, for us to do the design of our own piers. It's not like they're going to fix our piers for us. We have to, that's our responsibility.
Assume so.
So is there no county money that we might be able to count on for helping with this, considering that a county project is helping to exacerbate it? Or is the county just taking care of a river and the river is responsible for the damage?
Well, actually, the county is going to fix the revetment at the pump station there, and it's a county project because they own that revetment. This is very similar to the Park Avenue revetment that we had done before, where the county owned it, but we did the work. I would rather the county actually do the work because it wasn't really a great deal for the city to do it. It worked out because we wanted to build a portion of the river trail at that time, but there's no good incentive for us to do this job for them. And so the county is going to do it. But it does prevent any destabilization around the bridge and around our pump station. So we are encouraging the county to do this work.
Okay, all right. Thank you for explaining that. Councilwoman Cotton, anything? No? Okay. Was there anything that you didn't get to say that you needed to?
So I was just trying to mention something on the ongoing support with the county. So even if we're not, so if the county doing their project, the coordination part of it, the meetings is not estimated to take long time. What will take long time is what they do in their project and its effect on our project. So even if there is no ongoing meetings with the county, we will still have to reflect what they do in their project and its effect on our bridge. So it's more of related to our project rather than the support for from the county.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we move this forward, yes? Consent or non-consent?
Well, we'll need some discussion.
So that sounds to me like non-consent. Okay, all right, let's do it that way.
Was the definition of non-consent, but all right.
And I got it, didn't I?
You did great. You did great. Hey, how about we discuss some things? Oh, reclaimed water reservoir. Yeah, let's talk about that one.
Oh, now you gotta get them going.
Oh, man. I hate this one. Yeah.
Let them talk first.
Okay, all right.
All right. So I want to provide an update on this project, and I also want to present this to council. So this will be a bit of a summary from what we discussed last time, but I want to have a Q&A session afterwards for things that you guys may have been wondering, have questions about. So recap, the city operates a Class A reclaimed water system, which the idea behind reclaimed water is that it's a resource that can be reused. It encourages water conservation and provides environmental benefits to the river. And it is part of our adopted water use efficiency program. So that's our existing utility. We have some state required improvements that are part of our capital program, which include building a new 400,000 gallon reservoir and pump station, which will be up on the ridge adjacent to Eagle Lake. This will meet the State Department of Ecology and State Department of Health standards. And the capacity of these improvements will essentially offset water usage equivalent to about 2,000 ERUs or 15% of the peak water demand, which would occur in August when reclaimed water is available. So just to recap on budget and schedule, the total project cost is estimated for $9 million. Our current CIP has allotted 3.3 million, and we have received a draft state offer for a loan of just shy of 7 million. The final loan will be, final funding offers will come out this summer, June 2024. A couple different interest rates that we can consider for those funding offers. And then part of our state mandate is that these improvements need to be completed prior to June 2026. So the majority of the construction would likely occur in 2025 with that schedule. And with that, I will take questions.
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
Sure.
Can we stop you?
Why do we need this? Why do we need this?
So this, so we have a reclaimed water utility that we've been operating for over 20 years.
How many exactly? Say the whole number.
20, we've been operating at probably 24 years. Yeah. Built in 1998. I don't know when it first started operating, but say 24 years. This all stems from the reclaimed water rule that occurred, that Ecology in conjunction with Department of Health adopted in 2018. And I've read up a little bit more on that rule since our last presentation. You can look it up. It's called the Reclaimed Water Rule. And really they've framed the rule around reclaimed water is not wastewater. It's a resource that we will be using to be an alternative to potable water in the future. So they want to make sure that the distribution and use of that is very controlled and safe, and that people have confidence in it. So that's what I've read about the state reclaimed water rule. And from that rule is where we got these mandates for this reservoir. So that's the best I can answer. I can't, yeah.
And I think you're doing a great job, but nowhere in that statement did you tell me why we need this. How do we use this water?
How do
So at least for,
I'll let the man.
okay, all right, I'll shut up.
You're doing great, by the way. I am not, I am
Right,
not mad at you.
As soon as you use the reclaimed water, there's a number of ways. So it provides an alternative means of wastewater discharge if it doesn't meet river standards. Actually, sometimes we can use it for reclaim. So it provides resilience to our wastewater system. Like I mentioned, it provides an offset of 15% of our potable water use. So if we don't use reclaimed and our demand does not change, if we irrigate the same, if we're having the same practices, we'd have to increase our potable usage by approximately 15% in those peak months, which is equates to about 2,000 ERUs of residents.
So we use it for irrigation. And where specifically are we irrigating? Repeat that. You've told us before. Tell us
yeah.
again,
Community park,
right?
the business park, the parkway, and then the golf course uses it as well, but they're direct point of use, so this project doesn't really supply
Yeah, it
to them.
doesn't affect them.
And any of our other parks, does Centennial get watered with this water or?
No, we don't have, it couldn't potentially in the future, but currently we don't have distribution system there.
Okay, so we're using this water for irrigation.
Yeah.
And we've been doing that for 24 years. What is the concern?
Well,
Why do we have to hermetically seal this water now?
Well, wait a minute, let's back up though. It's not a concern. If you wish to have those areas irrigated in the future, you either have to do it with potable water or this new standard of what they're calling Class A reclaimed water.
Why, Brian? Why do we need to spend $9 million to do what we've already been doing for 24 years?
Because of the duck poop,
Say again?
the duck poop.
Because of the duck poop, which is demonstrably a problem because of all of the deaths and illness we've had as a result of our reclaimed water.
so we have been in discussions with the state Department of Ecology for 5 or 6 years, probably longer than that. Jeff might know more on the background, but this started with a requirement to chlorinate all of our water. We've been working with them and we did receive an exemption from the chlorination, which would be a bigger project, bigger improvements. And you mentioned duck poop. Really, it comes back to what we call cross connection control, which is part of drinking water. So we produce a product, it can't be degraded. And if there are other unknown vectors, such as stormwater, rainwater, runoff, that could potentially degrade the water. And
But never
that's
has.
back to. There's been no reported cases. We've been.
No reported cases
operating-
in this millennium.
That's right.
Okay.
Jeff has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so Andrew was correct. Back in 2018, when we were issued notice on this, with the former mayor, we fought tooth and nail with ecology on this. And for all the same reasons that you're bringing up, we have not had any incidents or known incidents of people getting sick from the water. And we were using a system which ecology had kind of directed us to implement. But with the new rule, we did not have a choice. They believe that in other places in the country, there is incidents of people getting sick from reclaimed water, and that it's possible that bacterial regrowth can occur in our system. And they were not swayed by our arguments, and we were essentially mandated to do this. Now, what we're proposing to do is a bit of an exception for them, because they wanted us to chlorinate the water. And through a series of meetings and roundabout discussions, we've come up with a solution, interim solution. The possibility of chlorinating, or the potential of chlorinating the water, would have required us to redo our entire irrigation system, which would have cost us a lot more, and it would have required us to use chlorine for forever. So it was, this was our best solution out of several considerations.
So what I'm hearing is we're getting strong-armed, and it could be worse. They could be strong-arming us harder. But in 24 years, even back in the olden days, back in 2001, we haven't had any problems with this system. And so now Snoqualmie has to come up with $9 million and spend it on this solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I appreciate that we have fought against this. But this is, we see how hard it is to come up with this kind of money. It's, and the fact that the loan rate is low doesn't change the fact that we're going to spend 10 million bucks on this thing, and there's no reason for it. That's $10 million of opportunity cost, where we could spend that money on things that we actually need. I hate this. I love you. I think the work you do is fantastic. You too, Jeff. But this is a crime, man. This is just bureaucratic overreach, forcing us to solve problems that don't exist. And people of Snoqualmie are getting screwed out of a lot of money here.
Okay, but it's fluoride toothpaste or fluoride in the water. A government authority higher than us has said, thou shalt do something or other. Whatever logic they had discussions. Logic held, said, you need to do something about your irrigation water. From there, as opposed to running these guys over the grill, okay, you have a couple options. You can either do the project to comply. You can sue the state and say this is wrong. Odds are, if there are cases outside of us, cases where this water has affected public health and whatever, they can show justification, not likely a course that you'll make. Or you can just stop irrigation. But that's pretty well it. All the talking, there's no, tell me the other options.
Well, I'm exercising one of them. Complain, complain, complain. All right, what did you want to say, Kat?
I just had a question for Andrew as far as, so the total bill there, does that include the purchase of the property? The $9 million?
Yes, well, that's still to be discussed, but based on estimates, yes, that includes.
So property purchase to build a new pump station. Correct? That's where the pump station's gonna go.
Land acquisition, yes.
And then where is the covered reservoir? Is that also up on the golf course area?
That would be adjacent to Eagle Lake.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
okay, the vault.
Yes.
And then is there any other piping or things that needs to be done? Since we're not chlorinating, I know we change out the system. But is there gonna be things that need to be replaced further down from the pump station and the reservoir?
There is a lot of site improvements associated with this, but that's all wrapped up in that
Right,
9 million.
at that site.
estimate. Yeah, at that site, correct. We have a small portion to decommission the existing pump station, to pull our equipment out of there and cap pipes, but that's pretty minimal.
Does and I'm sure you folks have explored all other options besides this, as Councilmember Benson refers to it, hermetically sealed vault. Is there any other types of reservoir that ecology would accept as far as this or something on a more, maybe not as a more temporary basis, or like I understand the property, I understand the new pump station being needed, But could there be a more temporary holding facility that would comply before having to go to this luxury coffin, so to speak?
You know, we looked at alternatives for, we have an engineering report that Ecology has accepted that looks at solutions. And you know, there's an industry standard for utilities, so concrete tanks, kind of the way that utilities are built. I don't know if, you know, we looked at steel tanks, open to suggestions, but you know, part of this is that we got this exemption for chlorination, and that is by building a robust tank. And that was discussed. I'm not.
Jeff has his hand up again.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Hamlin.
Yeah, we've looked at every option. I mean, every option that you could think of. And we even, you know, with those, I don't understand exactly what you mean by a more temporary solution, because what we're trying to do is secure this resource for far into the future. Because this not only provides for, you know, our continued reclaimed water use, but it protects our water sources, our potable water sources, for other uses, for growth or whatever, you know, for resiliency and drought proofing. So it was, if we were to do away with our reclaimed water system, that's like 15 million gallons a year of potable water that we would need for irrigation. So, you know, we feel that this is a good use of a good investment for us because it preserves our water resource.
And I do understand that. I wasn't suggesting that we don't need to do it. It's that, you know, as Councilmember Benson brought up the money aspect, and I realize that things will get more expensive in the future, but if there was, you know, something that could be, or could be done in phases, or, you know, what have you, but and granted, we don't need to use potable water for irrigation, absolutely. So I'm not in favor of that at all. Just like I say, I'm sure you folks have investigated this thoroughly.
Mr. Hamlin, how does this increase the amount of water that we're talking about?
Increase? Well, what it does is essentially provides us an additional, well, for several things. One, the golf course gets all of their water from us for irrigation. So without that, they you know, they couldn't exist. About 15 million gallons of that water that we pump up the hill, we use for our irrigation. And that's, as Andrew had mentioned, in the parkway, in the business park, and in community park. If we were to abandon that for ourselves, to potable water use, then we would just have to come up with that additional water, irrigation water, through our potable water source. So by that, you know, it doesn't get us any more water. It allows us to keep doing what we're currently doing. But in a way, it's a cheap source of irrigation water for us. Not so cheap anymore, but I mean, we can kind of look to the fact that for the last 24 years, we've had a cheap source of irrigation water. And it is part of the utility, so it is funded. These improvements will be funded through utility rates.
Yeah, that's our citizens paying that. And
Correct.
The point that I appreciate you making is this doesn't actually increase the amount of water. It just is the flaming hoop that we have to jump through in order to continue using the water.
That's correct.
And that's what's bogus about this. The system has been working great, and now we need to pay $9 million to keep doing what we've been doing, but with a fancy tank.
Yeah. There is a couple things we should mention in that the existing pump station that we've been using is in need of a replacement. The golf course doesn't wish to use it anymore either. It's pretty well, it's obsolete, it's functionally obsolete. So this $9 million, it also covers the cost of replacing the pump station and separating it from the existing pump station. So we'll have a new pump station, which should be good to go for another 30 years or so.
Well, make me feel better. What percentage of this $9 million is replacement of the pump station?
Andrew, you know that?
It's approximately 2.5%, or sorry, 2 to 2.5 million.
So a quarter of it.
Yeah, quarter to a third. Yeah.
Okay, that makes me feel a quarter better. I still feel 3/4 crappy about this, but
I'd
that
be
does
happy
make
to
me.
answer more questions after me. I know we got a full agenda. So I'm
Okay,
gonna-
all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me rant and
Uh,
complain.
Once the structure is complete, what would the life of this particular solution be for the city?
Just roughly, I would guess 30 to 50 years on a reservoir.
Okay, that should make you feel another quarter better. Then.
That doesn't make me feel another quarter, but we're gonna spend 25 years paying for this thing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, King Street closure. Oh, this is exciting. Who's talking about this one? Did you put them in this order on purpose to make me feel better after the,
I hope so.
okay, all right, well, thank you.
Well, actually, can I take back? If you're going to say that, then I'm going to say absolutely I did.
All right, well, thank you, Dylan. I appreciate that. I needed to pick me up.
The pace is going to keep going all night. Okay. Wait for this to catch up with me. And I'm going to go to the proper slide. Okay, sorry. Good evening, Mayor and Parks Public Works Committee. My name is Dylan Gamble, and I am the CIP manager, and I am here to discuss the potential or several potential options that we'll get to in a minute on how to handle the section of King Street between 202 and Maple Avenue. I kind of want to first draw attention to where we are. I'm very certain that you all know exactly where this is, but if you'd like to get your bearings, here's an aerial view. The section we were talking about is where the railroad tracks cross right next to 202 over to where Maple, the sidewalk would essentially cross. You can see the gravel lot up on the top right-hand corner and the Northwest Train Museum on the bottom there. Here's a point of view to help orient yourself as well. On the left side, we're standing in the road. In fact, Google is standing in the road. Taking a picture of the left side, which is the Woodman. On the right side would be Smoky Joe's and Railroad Park. And then on the right side photo, you're seeing the right side of the Woodman. So I believe that perspective is there. Here are some of the considerations, and I want to give you some background as to how we got here. We are working through the this grant proposal where we are partnered with the Northwest Railway Museum to improve our crossings and our controls of those crossings, specifically to reduce the negative impacts that cars and rails have on each other. And this improvement would be to upgrade the infrastructure of those crossings.
We want
So-
the cars and the rails to interact as little as possible.
So, and that kind of equates to either distance, sight lines, height of equipment, all sorts of things like that. And that all relates to how big the forms and foundation equipment or forms and foundations are to support that equipment. So we're looking at that at both King Street and the Parkway. That grant has been received and we are working through it. As part of the commentary that WashDOT, the granting organization, gave us is to consider how this intersection interacts with the railway as it stands, suggesting that we might look into what a partial closure would mean for our city. So before we just keep going down the path of status quo, which is essentially what we have here, we wanted to bring a couple of considerations on how to alternatively use King Street going forward. And so I just wanted to outline that there are three here alternatives to the status quo. However, there's a lot of variables and there's a lot of ways to kind of find gray space between them too. So the first one I want to call out is a seasonal closure. And the intent of this was to look at a summer kind of time window or a late spring to early fall when we see a lot of pedestrian usage that alley as well as the historic downtown. So we could consider closing it for just that window of time. And we would use simple bollards, and we could even look into further projects, but I'll get to that in a second. Additionally, we could look at a reconfiguration of the lanes so there could be a one-way rather than its current configuration, which is a two-way. We could do this on weekends. We could also consider it for special events. There's a lot of ways to kind of piecemeal this. And the last one would be a permanent closure of the road between those two sections. And this would allow us to consider some pretty substantial railroad park changes that would pretty dramatically affect the interfacing of how that park interacts with the museum as well as our historic downtown and that intersection. And I just kind of wanted to discuss, and we've been in discussion with several of our other community members and I'd call them critical stakeholders in this. And so here are some of the revitalizing historic downtown elements that we've identified that any of the three changes beyond the status quo could bring to a partial closure or a full closure anywhere in between. So we've seen that a substantial improvement to our ability to host farmers markets, summer events, museum events of this nature, and we would expect to see a increase in the amount of revitalization by how much closure we have. So a full closure would mean we could redesign we could redesign Railroad Park, and that could give a lot more opportunities for summer events if we reconstructed the road, changed how the road is patterned, some things of that nature. And lastly here, I just wanted to go over some of the pros and cons that staff considered while we were reviewing this optionnaire that we're bringing before you. We see the railroad crossing safety is a additional bonus if a reduction was considered. Any minimizing of crossings is a benefit to that railroad conflict that we were talking about. So the crossing structures would still be there, especially if we had cars, even if it's in a temporary nature. So we're still pursuing that. But reducing its timeline and the amounts of conflicts, and especially the seasonality of both the railroad when they operate and the amount of pedestrians, we see a reduction and therefore a likelihood of safety improvements. Road maintenance is another big one. If you have less vehicles going over it, you have less road maintenance. It depends on if we pivot to some different railroad park structure, that would obviously change it into a park project. So there's a lot to unpack there, but the last one is it's a low cost option. If we wanted to bollard up the road quickly, it is not an expensive process for us to kind of work through. If you wanted to redesign all of Railroad Avenue and how it interacts with the town, that would be a bit of a divergence from a low cost version, but it's definitely gives opportunities and options, especially the road. The last one is that we have considered this there will be some impacts to how the traffic flows will be changed by a potential closure, both seasonal and permanently. The main one being that there are some people that live nearby that likely use this road every day, and they will be impacted. In our comprehensive plan, this road section, unlike most of the other roads in the area, is not considered an arterial or a corridor or even a minor arterial, any of these things, unlike these roads here, Maple Avenue and River. And so the King Street does not actually currently, even in our comprehensive plan, represent a thoroughfare of traffic. Lastly, in pairing with this is that we do close this road currently for some special events. And so there has been some ground truthing of the negative impacts, and I'm going to shoot from the hip here, and we have discussed it before, and I'll let Nicole come up if she needs to, but we haven't seen a huge outcry from these events and the negative traffic impacts that they've had. So I believe that's it.
So the
Yeah.
increased traffic that necessarily comes to the other streets around it has not been significant to the point of.
I will let Nicole speak, but I'm pretty certain I have not heard any, and Nicole can confirm it. And yeah, I'll just leave it there, I suppose.
So you're wondering when it has been closed for events, if it's been impactful, if there's been, is that the question? I close it every year for the tree lighting event. It's closed for 24 to 36 hours and
Incredible event, by the way.
thank you very much. And I've been doing that for several years and I've yet, now knock on wood, I'll get one, but I've yet to receive a complaint about the road closure. So, and you know, a lot of communities have done this mainly in response to the pandemic. And I've noticed that a lot of the different other cities and communities that closed certain roads for the pandemic have continued to keep those roads closed. So
And can I ask you another question?
absolutely.
Uh, what are some of the exciting uses of this space that you foresee?
Well, already off the top of my head, the events that could already would be requesting for a road closure would be Art Off the Rails on June 15th. Sip Fest doesn't ever usually, I don't think that sounds like a lot of bad grammar. I don't know Sip Fest off the top of my head if they close it, but I think it would be a benefit to them to have that road closed. I close it for the tree lighting, Snoqualmie Winter Lights. Those are Snoqualmie Days. Thank you very much. That's closed. Right off the top of my head, there's 4 summer, except for the winter events that it would be closed. I feel like you had a 2-parter to your question and I answered the
Did I?
first part. I don't know. I'm
Yeah, I
Maybe.
got lost in your amazing response, so I don't remember what.
Oh, how could this be activated?
Yeah.
I think it's a really good opportunity. And we've talked a lot about this internally. I've talked about it with Dylan and his team. We brought it to the downtown merchants meeting last week. If there were any maybe reservations, I would suggest let's do a temporary closure, maybe for summer, see how it goes before we do a permanent closure. We talked about obviously making it very safe with whether it's bollards or potted plants, particularly on the King Street side. We would need to keep the Maple side so that there could be access for deliveries, trucks coming in, potentially, you know, a fire truck. So that would never be a permanent closure, but the other one would be more of a permanent closure. There is ways to pretty it up with flowers. I've seen that done in a lot of other communities, even on busier roads. So I think there's that possibility. There's possibility to activate it with, you know, the park or maybe different food trucks throughout the season. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities with this road closure. And I think just create just an extension of the park and just making it more walkable between the park and the depot. Also, doing that event, Snoqualmie Winter Lights, and having the train and being out there all day. It's concerning to me when you've got the train and you got people and clothes and all of that. So I think it creates a more safe environment. Also, if the train has a lot of visitors, it creates an overflow so that they can go into the street versus staying on the sidewalk. I did not know I was going to speak, so I'm kind of winging it. I'm hoping I'm okay.
Well won. Were there any other questions?
All right, so I'll channel my Councilman Benson. Well, when was the last time we had an interaction between a car and a railroad in Snoqualmie?
Hi, I'm going to look to the room.
It was last year.
We actually had one a few weeks ago where a vacuum truck was parked on the railroad tracks during a project and the train came up on it.
See, this is an actual problem.
Well,
Brian.
no, because the train never touched the, we're not moving that fast here in our trains. Okay, I mean, they got time to stop.
How soon can we close
Um,
Newton? No, no.
The other one, and I know you're still thinking, I'm a bit concerned of bringing in competing uses for existing uses,
Are you talking to the food truck use?
food truck use. You know,
So there has been an effort already when food trucks have been brought in by the different merchants to not bring anything that's competitive.
okay.
So that it's a serving that we don't currently have. I will be the first to admit 8-10 years ago when food trucks kind of came on to the scene, economic developers were very hesitant to do it, like shop local, let your restaurants do it. So real hesitant. But the opposite can be true if it's done right and you're bringing in people, you know, bringing in things that aren't being served. You can actually activate a community and you can bring more people into your community with having like a food truck night or food truck Friday or something to that effect. But just know that there's already in our minds conversations about that, or how do we do it strategically so we're not taking business away from the restaurants that are in town.
We can actually use this. Especially on the holidays, big holidays.
Well,
Can you come up to the mic?
we have an example last year on the 4th of July. It's a holiday, right? And these are all small businesses, both in downtown and on the Ridge. So it's a holiday. Business owners want to give their employees the day off. Well, as we know, Red, White, and Boom and the daily events are bringing a lot of people into this community. They were coming into the community and a lot of restaurants were closed. So we actually did a disservice to the people that came to our community because there wasn't enough restaurants downtown and on the Ridge to serve them. We already had gotten, working together. How do we strategize to make, if, first and foremost, let the businesses, are you going to be open? Here, here's what we need you to do. If you need to be closed, then we need to serve the people that are coming into town. So there is thoughtfulness behind that. Again, I'm having a hard time tracking this tonight. What was the other question?
Well, let's hear from these thoughtful people. Please.
I'm so sorry.
No.
So currently with the fire downtown, we are down 4 food service restaurants in the community. It's going to take several weeks for these businesses to get up and running.
Several weeks.
Several-
God bless you.
Because
That's not gonna happen, but that's okay.
that it is or isn't.
Several weeks.
I'm being
Are you gonna
positive.
be out there with a hammer?
Her definition of several.
So anyhow,
Sometime.
it's going to take some time and the businesses are feeling the effects of having this tragedy happen. So we can move forward and make this happen in early summer. We can start to infuse some activity downtown and help these businesses and help other merchants so that if people come into town, we have things for them to eat.
I want to go one step further. This is actually not
Please state your name and explain your role in this city.
Sir Ethan. I'm Dory Ross and I am the Historic Downtown Snoqualmie Merchants President. This is not, yes, we will need help this summer because of the fire. Removing the fire, we needed help before that. So we need more activation downtown. Food trucks, we actually bring them in on the weekends when we can. We've brought them to help with like Snoqualmie Brewery, right? Where we have put them before, I wouldn't say it's unsafe, but it's not as, would be much more thought out. This would be much more of a targeted, yeah, absolutely targeted. It would be just a lot more, it would be a lot easier to manage. So bringing in one food truck once in a while isn't really what we need. It'll help businesses if it's thoughtful, which we've discussed different kinds, this isn't like all of a sudden willy-nilly, we're going to bring in another Mexican food truck. We already know we have enough Mexican food and a Mexican food truck that's already here. We already have barbecue. We already have Italian. There's other things that we can do that will boost it up. On the corner, typically in the summer, we have 2 bums that brings in shaved ice. She's been on the corner. That will obviously change at this point. So if we make it thoughtful and we think it through and we bring in, it'll only actually support the merchants downtown. We bring in other things, even like this picture. I mean, this picture just makes me want to go, yeah. But bringing in other vendors possibly that can also assist with, I mean, let's be real. You guys have walked it on the weekend, or maybe you haven't because you live local and don't want to come down here because there's so many people, right? We want to keep bringing the people. If they come in and have a bad experience here because they couldn't get to food because the lines were too long or whatever, then they go away. So if we have things that can support them, which I think is it's a long lens, but I think it makes sense for us. This is not something that, we're just doing haphazardly. This will be talked about more with the merchants. I will be on the street between now and the council meeting. But so far, it's been very positive feedback. So.
Thank you.
So I am Catherine Podgwood and I'm the rogue agent of the Historic Downtown Snoqualmie Merchant Association. I run our website and our socials and I follow all that data and information, and dining is our #1 and access part of our website. And there's 20 storefronts off of Railroad. And we've been talking about the different percentages conversation, but when we are continually trying to support tourism and drive more people into town, we have small storefronts and small kitchens that hit capacity. That's Sunny March weekend. All of our restaurants hit capacity, and then the customer experience was not great because of wait times, and the kitchens being overloaded. We need extra support because, let's face it, flexing to our summer traffic and our rest of the year, those are some huge peaks and valleys. And the size of our operation does not change, but the amount of people that come into town does. So.
Well said. Thank you. Anything else on this?
Great idea.
Thank you so much. Okay. Number 5, introduction of the mayor's proposed 2025-2030 CIP, non-utilities. Close parentheses.
I think we have reading.
Is this for our materials? You got 5 minutes. 4.
3.
Okay, good evening again. I went straight from one slide to the next. So I wanted to bring, I'm here for the introduction of the upcoming CIP update, which is between the years of 25 through 30. So that would be going from the 23 to 28 is what we formerly have to this one. And I wanted to kind of explain documents that I sent you and provided here, as well as talk about some of the assumptions and kind of procedures that got us to producing this document here. So first off, there are 3 documents. There is a sheet that you see here, which is the combination of revenue and expenditures combined on one sheet with color coding to try to indicate the restricted use funds and restricted use, what projects or programs are using those. So transportation typically has a lot, and you'll see that transportation's color coded blue. There's a legend on the right side.
Big sheet.
The big sheet, is that what it is? Okay, yeah, so that's the big sheet you have there. And then the next document set will be the, as I'm calling them, the worksheets or the one-pagers. This is a breakdown of each project and program into revenue and all the years that the project is in operation. If it has a bunch of zeros, that means it's out. And sometimes there's projects that extend well beyond the 6-year CIP, and they'll be covered there as well. Lastly is a document. It's essentially me trying to help guide the between the 2 documents, between the 23-28 and the 25-30. I tried to make it a little cleaner than a red line document of the past one. There's a lot of changes, and so I'd kind of like to get into some of those. The intent for us that we are working through to get to this point is to consider all the council goals and objectives that were founded, the most recent retreat. And so considering those, we knew what some of the highest priorities would be. So we wanted to make sure that we maintain level of service. And to do that, we had a couple of major changes, which mostly relate to inflation and those impacts to the programs. So we tried to capture inflation, and we will get to what number we chose and why, and what statistics we used and how we value that. The same thing is going to be true for our revenue forecast, where we use a set of revenue forecasts generated from King County, and we have historically used those, and that helps us forecast in the future. In addition to that, we tried to find our most up-to-date estimates of the projects, so not programs, that we could. We obviously have moved through time since the last CIP was produced, and this is an effort to be as accurate as possible to those projects that we are within, tracking distance. We're very close now to some of those. We have really good answers to what our costs are going to be, and so we try to forecast that there. The last thing is we are doing all of this while maintaining a balanced budget. And there are a lot of details that go into that, especially when we consider all the restricted funds and how they get used out over the course of years, as well as some of the ambitious and exciting big projects that we have going on in the city. So that.
Thank you for explaining these documents. Sounds like we have some reading to do. Thank you for all your hard work on this. You're awesome. But I think we need to adjourn. Motion to, do I have a?
I can make a motion.
Okay, all right. What do you think? Mr. Holloway?
Would you like to second it?
Oh, you said you'd like to make a motion. I didn't hear you make.
No, he's still waiting.
Second, what she was going to say.
We're adjourned. Boom, right on time.